Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wa salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today we will be going over lesson 2 of Straight Path Academy Arabic Volume 1, Reading Arabic Letters. In lesson 1, we learned the 3 harakat, the fatha, kasra, and dhamma. And we learned that all 3 of these are symbols written either above or beneath a letter to represent a vowel sound. Now in this lesson, we learned that sometimes you will find a haraka written twice. So it'll be a double haraka. And when you find 2 of the same haraka written above or beneath a letter, all we're going to do is simply add the N sound at the end. So while one fatha sounds like a, 2 fathas sound like N. 1 kasra sounds like I, 2 kasras sound like in. 1 dhamma sounds like u, 2 dhammas sound like un. All that we do is add the sound of the N at the end. And this concept, as we're going to see, is called tanween. In this lesson, we learn a concept called tanween, which refers to the same haraka being written twice on the same letter. This has a grammatical significance that we will learn in the future, inshallah. The only difference between reading these harakat written once versus twice is that when they are written twice with tanween, we add an N sound at the end. Note, tanween only comes at the end of a word. Now, one important thing to recognize about the dhamma is that tanween dhamma can be written either like this, where both dhammas are literally written out, or you'll find it written like this, where there is an extra attachment at the end. So if we zoom in, we can compare these two. This is one dhamma, it's just the simple loop. Whereas this dhamma, it's the loop, but it also has that attachment that goes up and curves at the end. So specifically, tanween dhamma can be written like this or like this. So although this is a very important concept to learn, it's very simple. And it heavily just builds upon the previous lesson. So if we go to the exercise, it's a good way to continue practicing identifying the letter along with the haraka and the sound that it makes. But this time we're just going to add the letter N at the end due to tanween, when that haraka is written twice. Exercise 2. Practice pronouncing the letter ba with tanween. Write down the correct pronunciation beneath each example. The first row has been completed for you. So just like we did in the previous exercise, we're going to go to number 1. And step 1 is identifying the letter. The letter is, of course, the letter ba, which is represented by the English B. So we start off by writing the letter B. Step number 2 is identifying the haraka. And here we see that there are 2 of the same haraka. Which haraka is this? This is the fatha, which sounds like the letter A. So we write down an A for the first fatha, but because there's a second fatha, we're going to write an N for the second one, because this is tanween. So when you put it all together, you have the letter ba, which sounds like B. You have a fatha, which sounds like A, and you have a second fatha of tanween, meaning that there's an N. So you would read this as ben. And that's why in English we see it says ben. If we go to the second example, first we look at the letter. It is the letter ba. The letter ba is similar to the English B. So we write the B. Next we look at the haraka. The haraka we see is the kasra, which is a line written beneath a letter, which sounds like E. So we use the English I to represent that, B. But then there is a second kasra, meaning it has tanween. So lastly, we put the N. Therefore, when we read this all together, it is bin. That's why using English letters, we sounded it out with bin. So the first row was completed for us, but let's go to number 5 and see if we can do this ourselves. Step number 1, identify the letter. This is the letter ba, which sounds like the English B. So you write a B for the letter ba. Then we look at the haraka. Now we see that this is a dhamma. It's a loop, which sounds like the English U, oo. But we also see that there is this squiggle attachment at the end of the dhamma, which is one way of showing that this has tanween. So it really means that there are 2 dhammas, and therefore, to represent the second dhamma, to represent tanween, we put an N. So for the letter ba, we have a B. For the dhamma, we have a U. And then for the tanween dhamma, we have an N. So we would read this as bun. So the next step, as always, is just making sure that you memorize this information. And one important way of doing that is completing the exercises. A major part of language learning is memorization, and we've broken it into very small, easy to digest steps. And we've provided exercises. So it's simply just a matter of you completing them. Inshallah, in the next lesson, we will go full speed ahead in learning more Arabic letters. Because after you've learned the harakat, next we want to focus on learning the actual letters. Allah knows best. Thank you for watching. Jazakum Allahu khairan. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.